The rain had just started when the cafeteria doors burst open. A teacher shouted for the children to stay inside, but no one listened. There was something happening out front. Something loud, something humiliating. Right there on the concrete steps, an old woman stood motionless, her back straight but soaked through as a mother yelled at her in front of everyone. "I don't care who you think you are. Stay away from my kids." The crowd had gathered fast, parents, students, even a few teachers peeking from the windows. Some recorded, others whispered. The woman didn't speak. Her grey coat clung to her thin frame, dripping. Her scarf, once white, now brown at the edges, clung to her wet braids. She clutched a clear plastic bag to her chest like a shield. Inside, nothing valuable, just a notebook, a half-eaten sandwich, a folded photo. But she held it like it was gold. The twins stood frozen just inside the glass doors, watching it all. Leah reached for her brother's hand. Luca didn't blink. "Why's Mom yelling at her like that?" he whispered. Leah didn't answer. She didn't know, but something didn't feel right. Their mother turned and saw them watching. "Get away from that door, now!" They flinched, stepped back. The woman finally turned to leave, but slipped on the wet pavement. The bag hit the ground first. Its contents spilled, paper soaked, sandwich ruined, photos sliding toward the gutter. No one moved to help. Except the twins. They pushed past their mother and ran outside. Leah bent down to grab the photo. Luca helped the woman to her feet, and for a moment, the noise stopped. The world blurred. The only thing that existed was the quiet between them, because that was the moment everything began to change. Her name was Eleanor May, though no one at the school knew that. To most, she was just that woman, the one who waited outside in the rain, sat alone in the cafeteria's darkest corner, and never spoke unless spoken to. She came every afternoon at 3:05, always wearing the same oversized grey coat, always clutching that plastic bag. Some said she was homeless. Others said she was dangerous, but no one really knew. No one cared to ask. Except Leah and Luca. That rainy afternoon changed something in them. It wasn't just that they had helped her up. It was what they saw in her eyes. Something tired but warm, fragile but still standing. And that photo. Leah had wiped it dry with her sleeve before giving it back. It was a picture of two kids, maybe their age, hugging a younger, smiling version of the same woman their mother had just screamed at. Eleanor had whispered, "Thank you," as she took it. The twins didn't tell their mother what they did. They couldn't. Not yet. But something had shifted. From that day on, they sat near her in the cafeteria. At first just nearby, then closer. By the third day, they were sharing their snacks with her. She never asked for anything. She just watched them with a softness in her eyes that made them feel seen, really seen. Other kids whispered, "Why are they sitting with her?" Teachers frowned. Their mothers scolded. But Leah and Luca didn't stop. They didn't care. Because in the quiet, they were learning something no one else seemed to know. Kindness isn't loud. Sometimes it just sits beside you in silence and makes you feel less invisible. Before we go deeper into what happened next, if stories like this mean something to you, if you believe people deserve to be seen beyond how they look, please subscribe to this channel, leave a like, and tell us in the comments, from which country and city are you watching this right now? Your voice helps us bring more stories to more hearts. It had all started 3 weeks before that rainy scene on the steps, though the twins didn't know it then. The school had decided to open the cafeteria in the afternoons for parents who arrived early to pick up their kids. It was cold that time of year, too cold to stand outside. And that's when Eleanor appeared, not through the front door. Not with a car or a child, she just materialized. One afternoon she was there, quiet, alone, sitting at the furthest bench, like she'd always belonged to the walls. She never ate, she never spoke. She didn't even bring a phone to pass the time. She just sat staring out the window like she was watching for something or someone that never came. On the first day, the teachers whispered. By the second, the parents started avoiding her side of the room. By the third, the kids began calling her names. Shadow Granny, Scarf Ghost, Crazy Bag Lady. Leah hated the sound of it. Luca hated how everyone laughed when someone threw a crumb toward her just to see if she'd react. She never did. But it wasn't until Leah saw her hands trembling, fingers barely able to hold the plastic bag, that she felt something twist in her chest. Not fear, not pity, recognition. That kind of quiet sadness only a few people carry. "Why is she always alone?" Leah asked one night at dinner. "She's not your concern," their mother said, slicing meatloaf with unnecessary force. "But she's always at school," Luca added. "She doesn't even bother anyone." "She shouldn't be there," the mother snapped, "and you two better stay far away from her." "Did something happen?" Leah asked. Their mother paused, just for a second. Her face twitched. "People like that always want something." That night, Leah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Eleanor's eyes, how they never looked at people, only at the door, like she was waiting. For what? The next day, Leah packed an extra apple in her bag. Luca brought a drawing he'd made, 3 stick figures holding hands under a big sun. During lunch, they left the items quietly beside her and walked away. Eleanor didn't move at first, but when the twins turned to peek from across the room, they saw her holding the apple gently, like it might disappear. She looked at the drawing for a long time. Then, slowly, she placed both items inside her plastic bag, folded it twice, and held it to her chest. The next day, Eleanor moved her seat 2 inches closer to where the twins usually sat. She still didn't speak. But she nodded, not a big dramatic nod, just enough for Leah and Luca to know she saw them. A week passed like that. The twins started sitting directly beside her. Sometimes they brought her crackers, sometimes a folded napkin. Once Luca gave her a pack of grape juice. She took it in both hands and whispered, "Thank you." It was the first word she'd spoken to them. No one else seemed to notice, or maybe they didn't care, until the day the mother found out. She came early for pickup and saw her children laughing with the woman everyone else avoided like a disease. She froze, then stormed across the cafeteria so fast that Eleanor didn't even have time to stand. "What did I say?" she shrieked. "Get up, get away from her." "Mama, she didn't do anything," Leah said, rising to shield Eleanor instinctively. "She's dangerous," the mother hissed. "People like her don't just sit around for no reason. They're waiting, watching." "Watching what?" Luca asked. The mother didn't answer. Her face was red. Her hand trembled as she grabbed their wrists and yanked them from the bench. Eleanor didn't move, didn't defend herself. She just sat there, looking smaller than she had minutes before. Her eyes, usually so soft, looked like glass, ready to crack. As the mother dragged them away, Leah looked back, and Eleanor smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind people give when they know something you don't. That night, the twins didn't eat dinner. They didn't speak. Even the TV felt too loud. Their mother paced. She kept checking the windows like someone might be watching. Finally, she snapped, "She's not what you think. She's hiding something." "Like what?" Leah asked. "She's been around people like you before," she muttered. "Kind-hearted, naive, that's how they get close." Leah narrowed her eyes. "Or maybe she's been around people like you." The room fell silent. The next morning, Eleanor was gone. The bench was empty. The plastic bag, the grey coat, the scarf. Gone. Leah and Luca searched the cafeteria like she might be hiding somewhere, under a table, around the corner, just waiting to appear. But Eleanor May was nowhere. And yet, something was different. On the table where she used to sit, folded neatly, was Luca's drawing, the one with the stick figures and the sun. But now she had drawn something new on the back, a small house with 2 children in front of it, and a word, one word, written in careful block letters, home. They showed it to their teacher. She smiled politely, then said, "That's sweet, but we don't know who she was. Probably a stranger passing through." Their mother refused to talk about it. Every time the twins mentioned her name, she'd raise her voice. "Enough, she's gone, let it go." But they couldn't. 3 days passed, then 4. On the 5th day, it rained again. Leah and Luca sat by the window during recess, watching the yard fill with puddles. Something pulled at Leah's chest, a weight, a longing. She turned to Luca and whispered, "She's still here." He didn't ask why. He just nodded. After school, while other kids ran to SUVs and dry umbrellas, they walked. Past the parking lot, around the gym, toward the old fence behind the dumpsters. And there, barely visible in the rain, they saw her. Eleanor stood under a small awning near the delivery entrance. Her scarf was darker now, soaked from days of storm. Her bag, fuller than usual, rested on the ground beside her, but her posture was the same, waiting, watching. The twins didn't say anything. They just walked up and sat beside her on the damp concrete. Leah handed her a new drawing, this one with a tall tree and 3 figures underneath. Eleanor stared at it for a long time. Then she spoke. "I used to work here," she said quietly. Leah blinked. "You were a teacher?" "No," she said. "I was a custodian, long ago." "How long ago?" Luca asked. Eleanor didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her plastic bag and pulled out something new, an old staff ID badge, its corners bent, photo faded, but name still clear. Eleanor May, Facilities Maintenance. "That was back when your mother was in school," she said. The twins froze. "My mum went here?" Leah asked. Eleanor nodded. "She was younger than you, always angry, always afraid of being seen as poor. But I saw her. I helped her." "She never told us," Luca whispered. "She wouldn't," Eleanor replied, her voice barely above the rain. "People forget kindness when it makes them feel ashamed." A silence settled between them. "I used to pack her lunch," Eleanor continued. "She'd pretend it was hers from home. She never thanked me. Not once, but she always ate it every day." Leah's throat tightened. "Why did you come back?" "I thought maybe she'd remember. Maybe the world wasn't as cold as I feared." That night, the twins didn't ask permission. They told their mother they were going out and they walked, alone, back to the school. Eleanor was still there. Leah handed her a sealed letter, a drawing, and something else. A clean scarf. "She won't say thank you," Leah said. "But I will." Luca added, "Me too." They didn't wait for a reply. They just walked away. Back at home, their mother found the drawing first, then the scarf, then the letter. It read, "You once said, people like her always want something. You were right. She wanted to be remembered. And now she is. By us. By you. Whether you like it or not." Their mother sat at the kitchen table long after midnight, the drawing shaking in her hand. And in the early morning, before the sun rose, she walked to the school, alone. Eleanor was already there. Eleanor didn't flinch when she saw her. The woman who had once screamed at her in front of a crowd now stood drenched and shivering in silence. Her expensive boots were soaked, her mascara smudged, and for the first time in years, she looked like the girl Eleanor had once known. "I brought tea," the mother said, holding out a paper cup. Eleanor took it gently, sipped, then placed it on the bench beside her. "I didn't know it was you," the mother added. "You did," Eleanor replied. The mother flinched. "I was a child." Eleanor's voice was calm, steady. So were Leah and Luca, and look what they saw. A long pause hung in the wet air between them. "I thought you were gone," the mother said. "I was. Then I saw your twins. I thought maybe this was the right place to be remembered." "They shouldn't have been near you," she snapped, but her voice cracked halfway through. "They saw me as I am and they weren't afraid." Silence again, the kind that digs deep. "I was ashamed," the mother whispered finally. "You gave me food. You fixed my coat. You sat with me when I had no one, and all I did was run from the memory." Eleanor looked at her gently. "We can't choose who remembers us, only what they remember." The woman nodded, tears mixing with the rain. That night, for the first time, she invited Eleanor to their home. It wasn't a grand house, but it was warm. The twins ran to her as soon as she stepped in, wrapping their arms around her thin waist. Leah pulled out her sketch pad. Luca made hot chocolate. And Eleanor, she stood in the center of that tiny living room, feeling something she hadn't felt in decades. Wanted. Over the next weeks, everything shifted. Eleanor didn't wait alone anymore. The mother, now just Maya to Eleanor, started picking her up after school. The neighbors still whispered. Some parents still stared. But the twins didn't care. And Eleanor, she simply smiled. At the school, rumors changed. No longer the scarf ghost, kids now called her the story lady. Some even asked her to tell tales from when their parents were young. She never revealed the truth. She just smiled and said, "Not all stories need names." One afternoon, the principal approached Eleanor directly. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I should have asked your name. I should have known." Eleanor nodded, her smile gentle. We all forget to see. At home, Maya found herself returning to old memories. She opened a dusty photo album and found pictures of her young self with Eleanor in the background, quiet, holding a tray, always nearby. In one, Eleanor had placed her hand on Maya's shoulder, the only photo where she smiled. Maya wept. That weekend, she took Eleanor to the store and bought her a new coat. Eleanor declined 3 times before finally accepting. It was dark blue, simple, warm, and when she wore it, the twins said she looked like royalty. Eleanor laughed, a real, full laugh, one that filled the room and softened the walls of Maya's heart even further. Then came the letter, an invitation, from the school board. They wanted to recognize her, publicly, for her years of unnoticed service, for the kindness she had shown generations of students, for simply being Eleanor May. At first she refused. "I don't need a plaque to matter," she said, but Maya insisted. "No, but they do. They need to remember you the way you deserve." And so, the day came. In the school auditorium, packed with students, parents, and teachers, past and present, Eleanor walked on stage with Leah and Luca holding her hands. Maya stood behind her, tears in her eyes. A teacher read from a paper, her voice shaking. "We honor Eleanor May, whose quiet presence changed lives, whose kindness spanned decades, and whose legacy now belongs to all of us." Eleanor didn't speak at the podium. She simply bowed her head. But later, in the hallway, a child approached her. "Why were you always sitting alone?" the little girl asked. Eleanor smiled. "I wasn't. I was waiting." "For what?" "For someone brave enough to sit with me." The little girl beamed. "Can I sit with you next time?" Eleanor knelt down, took her hand. "You already have." The seasons changed quickly after that. The trees around the schoolyard, once bare and grey, burst into shades of gold and crimson. Rain gave way to wind, and with it, a new rhythm fell over the school. Eleanor no longer came to sit alone. She came to read stories, help with art projects, and on some days, just to listen. She became part of the school, not as a staff member, but as something deeper. A bridge. A reminder. A quiet presence that made people speak softer, look longer, listen more. Leah and Luca, now known among their classmates as the twins who changed everything, continued to walk her to the cafeteria bench every afternoon. And every time they sat beside her, Eleanor placed her hand gently on theirs as if grounding them to something older, something unspoken. One day, Eleanor pulled out the photo Leah had once saved from the gutter. She'd pressed it flat, dried it, and placed it in a plastic sleeve. Now she handed it to Leah. "That's my son," she said, pointing to the little boy. "And that's his sister, my grandchildren. They were your age the last time I saw them." Luca leaned closer. "Where are they now?" Eleanor looked away. Far, and not by choice. She didn't say more, and the twins didn't ask. But that night, Maya did. She sat beside Eleanor on the back porch, sipping tea. "I never knew you had a family." "I did. But grief pulls people apart," Eleanor said. "We think time will mend things, but sometimes it just buries them." Maya nodded slowly. "You were there for me when I didn't even know how to say thank you. You were just a child." "No," Maya said firmly. "You were my mother figure when I didn't have one. You fed me, clothed me, taught me dignity in silence, and I repaid you with shame." Eleanor reached for her hand. "You repaid me with 2 children who saw me. That's more than enough." Maya cried then, not out of guilt, but release. For years she had carried the weight of having erased the only person who had treated her like she mattered. And now, through Leah and Luca, the wound was healing. The school began calling Eleanor for more than visits. She was invited to storytelling events, empathy circles, even holiday parties. Her quiet wisdom became a balm. Parents who had once sneered at her now nodded respectfully when they saw her walk by. Some even apologized. But Eleanor didn't need apologies. She needed presence. And now finally she had it. Then one morning Eleanor didn't show up. No one panicked. Perhaps she had errands. But when she didn't return the next day, or the one after, Maya began to worry. She drove to the small shelter Eleanor had mentioned once in passing. The staff knew her well. She checked out, a worker explained. Said she found a family. Maya's hands trembled. Do you know where she went? The worker smiled. Said she was going home. No address, no forwarding contact, just gone. Back at the school, the twins waited on the bench. Every day, even through the cold. She's coming back, Leah would say. Luca nodded, but quietly he wasn't sure. Then, one day, months later, an envelope arrived at their door. Inside, no letter, just a single photograph. It showed Eleanor standing in front of a small white house, holding hands with two children, a boy and a girl, nearly the same age as Leah and Luca. On the back, a message in block letters. You made me remember, so I went to find what I forgot. And beneath it, in a smaller script, thank you for seeing me. Maya framed the photo. It hangs now in their living room, above the sofa, a quiet reminder that kindness doesn't always change the world in loud, sweeping gestures. Sometimes it just sits beside someone in silence and waits. Eleanor never returned to the school. But every spring, when the rain comes and the cafeteria fills with noise, two benches sit quietly by the window, empty, waiting, just in case someone new decides to see. Some stories don't end, they echo. Eleanor may never return to that cafeteria bench, but her presence remains in every quiet act of kindness, every child who chooses to see instead of judge, every adult who dares to remember. What began as a simple moment, two children sitting beside a woman everyone else ignored, became a seed. Her shift, a legacy, because sometimes the smallest choices ripple the farthest. So the next time you see someone sitting alone, pause. You never know the story they carry, or how yours might be waiting to intertwine with theirs. And if this story touched you, if it reminded you of someone you've forgotten or someone who once sat beside you when no one else would, help us share it. Leave a like. Subscribe to this channel for more powerful, true-to-life stories. And in the comments, let us know. From which city and country are you watching this? You never know, your story might be the one that changes everything for someone else, because seeing someone, truly seeing them, might be the most human thing we ever do.